Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hi.
Hey.
I have been ruminating on a coaching question, which is really just an open-ended question.
Is this the question for me or is this the question for everyone?
Oh, for everyone.
Okay.
Not for you. I mean, take it if you want it, but It's not just for you. It's for everybody. What if it was actually safe to take a risk? That seems impossible because inherent in the word risk is the idea that there's no guarantee of safety, obviously.
They seem like antonyms.
Yes. Contradictory. Oxymoronic. But I think that this year has demonstrated that a lot of things that we previously thought were stable are not. And
That's
things that might seem risky are actually the best bet. So, I know that there are people who earlier in the year, when the pandemic was kicking off, I actually really admired some of these people who decided to reach out to us for coaching. I don't even think we were doing a coaching promotion at the time. They were just like, okay, I want to use this time of uncertainty to get clear on some stuff. And I think that that's been kind of my take the whole year, really, is that inherent in a time like this, there's always opportunity. And you can choose to see it that way if you want to. But if you want to hedge your bets and make it more likely that you take something like this, a year of a shit ton of exhaustion and uncertainty, then you want to set yourself up for the most possible, I think, success going into the next year. Then do something like what we've got going on right now. It's a teeny bit of risk. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even sure we can count it as risk because I think it's so small. But some people might think doing a course or a one-off coaching session that feels risky. I don't know. But I actually think that when you have a conversation with somebody, when you can process something, we can get a little clearer about who you are and what you want and what you value and what's getting in your way, then I feel like you plant seeds.
Yeah.
So much to change in 2021.
I don't think anyone can argue with me about the fact that this has been a year of shaking things up. Yeah. Often things we didn't necessarily want shaken up. But that's
Does
what
anyone
happened.
ever really want it, to happen?
Well, I think there's times in your life when you're kind of feeling stagnant. You're like, okay, let's kind of shake it up. Let's try some new things,
change.
Whatever. This year, it was forced on all of us. And when the ground is shaking beneath you, you can grip on to what you've been doing and where you've been and hope that when everything settles, you can go back to normal. But the reality is when the ground settles again, it's not going to be the same normal. And so you do have to adjust and you do have to go a little bit with the flow and figure out where am I going to be when this dust settles? Yeah. And I think we're all hoping that the dust is going to start settling to some degree in 2021.
But you don't have to wait for it to settle.
You don't have to wait for it to settle.
You can do something to either help it settle or to get yourself to the point where it doesn't have to matter what's happening outside because you're good and clear on what's happening with you.
Exactly. And you may not want the status quo of how your life was pre-2020 to be the same. And even if you want that, it might just not be the same, right? We kind of need to adapt to the world is changing. And I think a lot of us want some of our own personal change. And if you want to be a little bit more directed about it, instead of it happening to you, you're choosing it, you're being intentional. That's what we're here for. That's what we built. I mean, truly, we built our whole business around that idea of you choosing change instead of change choosing you. So all that is to say, we have one more week of what we are now officially calling our Clarity in a Time of COVID special
promotion, whatever it is. I don't care.
Where you can get a little bit of guidance going into the new year about your career direction. We're doing a half off promotion of our Passion Profile short course. If you haven't taken the Passion Profile quiz, I should probably say this first. Please go do that. Go to our website. All over the site, you're going to see links to a quiz. It's going to help you pinpoint the ideal intersection between your passion and your career. So it's going to help you clarify what are my values around how I work and how can I start to align either my current work or the next job that I get or that I create with my values around work. And then we have a course that's going to actually walk you through how to do that. So you'll get your profile for the quiz, but then you can learn more about implementation.
As well as the other profiles. Because,
it's
possible to be a mix of both, but the quiz doesn't really teach you that.
Right. So there's a lot more in-depth personal understanding of your own profile, but also action planning based on your profile in the course.
Mm-hmm.
And that course is usually $249.
I mean, you could just round it up. For ease.
Right? Just for ease. It's $250. It's half off right now, which is insane. Until next Friday, the 18th. You could also decide, I actually think I want some one-on-one support. I just want to do a single session about a current challenge that I have.
I really highly recommend you think about it. Because normally when we offer coaching, it's 2 months or 6 months. That's all that's on offer.
Mm-hmm.
One session is not something we normally do at all because there's a process to coaching. But we have found it to be super helpful for the people who've done it when we, did this Clarity in a Time of COVID promotion earlier this year. So try it out.
Yeah, you can think of a single coaching session in a couple of ways. You could say, there's one particular thing I'm trying to decide about, or there's something that I'm trying to dig into a little bit that I'm getting stuck in my own head, and it'd be really helpful to talk it out with someone for an hour. You could also look at it as, I've been thinking about doing this coaching thing, but I don't really know what it's like. I've never had a coach before, and I want to test it out and then decide if I want to move on with one of those full processes we just described, the 2 months or the 6 months, where there is like steps and stages and a structure to the whole system. But if you wanted to dip your toe in the water first and try it out, this is a thing we don't usually offer. So now would be a good time to test it out.
Or you could bundle the two.
Yes.
And save even more money when you do the course and then add a single session. And then we could even debrief kind of the course experience that you've had, kind of like amp up what you got out of that by diving in further one-on-one. So this is a very good deal.
It's such a good deal that the bundle is cheaper than what the actual short course is on its own usually.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like embarrassing, but I'm not embarrassed.
But we're trying to help people out in a clearly weird time.
Oh, it's been a weird time. I would sign up for this if I weren't the one offering it. Because I need to process at the end of this year. I actually did sign up for a single session with my energy healer for, actually I think I'm going to be doing it today. Like as you're listening to this, I'm probably doing it. No, like on the 11th. So I might be actually doing it as you're listening to it.
I have a single session with, is it the same person?
No, it's a different person. Because you're talking to Madeline on the 11th. I'm talking
to Madeline, who we've referenced many times.
But are you doing it at 11 a.m.? Because I'm also doing it at 11 a.m.
No.
Yes.
I think we're just discovering this now as we record.
Well, I already knew. I saw it on your calendar. But anyway, so like Kristen and I have both gone to our people to be like, I need to debrief this year. I need to process this year. So if we're your people, come to us and we'll help you do that.
And to be honest, at this point, if you sign up for a single session, we're probably going to be scheduling them in January.
Well, yeah, because we're taking off at Christmas like we always do for a couple weeks.
So what better time?
New year, new you.
than the start, and not just any new year, like the year after this year in particular.
I feel bad for 2021. I mean, I guess it can only go up. Well, don't say that. Don't say that. No expectations.
Knock on some wood real fast. So yes, anyway, keep that in mind. One more week of this. And then who knows when or if we bring back single sessions. That's not a normal thing.
I don't do predictions anymore. I don't do
no expectations.
I do hardly any forecasting anymore after this year. I learned my lesson. So, okay, you can go to the episode notes for that. Keep in mind that the link to all of that is in the show notes. Particularly the one-on-one coaching, like the single session, that's really all. It's not linked on our site anywhere. It's just linked in the show notes, and or if you're on our email list, you can find it there.
You have to be in the know.
You have to be in the know. For the short course, you can obviously go on our site too and find it there.
No promotion codes either. This is just,
no, it's just cheaper on the site.
Just cheaper.
You don't need to have a code.
We made it really easy.
All right. So like 18 minutes into the introduction, let's talk about Anna, my really great client. She's a type 9. When you listen to this, because Kristen obviously hasn't had a chance to listen to it yet. She'll listen to it maybe after her session with Madeline today.
There you go.
You're going to love her because you guys have a lot in common. I mean, she's a type 9, so you already have a lot in common.
I love my fellow type 9s.
But yeah, I think like take notes because all of us take notes because I think she's done something that most people would think is impossible. And she would have said was impossible. Like creating space in your life for yourself when you're a working full-time mom of 3 little kids.
Who are at home because of...
Who are being schooled virtually. Yeah.
That's extra crazy right now.
So anyway, you want to read her bio?
Yes. All right. Anna is a working mother of 3 kids aged 6 and under. Whew, so she has her hands full. Yeah, I guess she does. After reading Glennon Doyle's Untamed about 6 months ago, Anna began to take more ownership of her time. She started working with Rachel and is learning to become less focused on pleasing others and more focused on taking care of herself so she can enjoy her life and show up for her family, job, and community in a more energized and authentic way. As part of that journey, she's taken up painting, a passion she had abandoned about 10 years ago, and is finding it is giving her so much life in this uncertain and chaotic time.
Oh my God. Earlier today, when you were reading that, you were like, I have another client who's taken up painting. And you were like, I don't get how people just like look at a blank canvas and then they just like put paint on it. And it becomes a thing.
Get it. It's amazing to me.
And then I was like, Kristen, you do that with words all the time. You look at a blank screen and then you like write something. And people are also unsure of how that happens.
I know. I guess it's the same kind of creative process.
It's the totally same thing. It's just visual.
My brain works in words, not images. So
not like that.
Yeah, I'm just so awed by people who can make visual art like that.
I can't understand how someone can look at someone's face and then draw that exact face. Mine looks like
a scary alien version.
Well, like it looks like something a 3-year-old would. I mean, I'm like that bad.
It's just incredible.
Looks like it really looks like a turd, not a person's face generally. So like the fact that she can do that, it just blows my mind.
That's like an amazing skill to me. So kudos to Anna and anyone who is visually talented in that way. But yes, let's hear about how she made some time because I don't get it.
Okay, let's learn. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Rachel.
This is fun. I get to see you for the first time, on camera. I don't think most people know that we don't normally Zoom with clients. Now I feel like it's probably a thing that people expect, but we usually just talk on the phone. So I don't actually see the people that I work with. And I sometimes don't even know what they look like if they don't have like a Gmail picture or something. So this is like getting to hang out with you on a whole new level for me.
Yeah, it's cool to see you.
Okay. They heard the intro that Kristen and I recorded for this. So they know a little bit about you already. And, I kind of want to start with everything. Like where you're at now is very interesting, but I like to build up to where you are now. So you want to go back like 6 months or a year, or just kind of tell me where you felt like you were, maybe at the beginning of 2020 even?
Yeah. I think at the beginning of 2020, it was not a good time for me. I think probably the beginning of COVID and like around March was like a very low point for me. I think I was feeling super frazzled in my life before COVID happened, like feeling just like being pulled in many different directions at the same time. Like, like my intro mentions that I have 3 young kids. So, feeling like there's a lot of attention that they're needing from me, and also working full time and being really committed to and absorbed by my job. And yeah, I think I was just feeling like there was never enough time in the day to attend to everything. And I think I hadn't even realized how much I was completely ignoring any of my own needs. It was just more like, feeling frazzled and anxious that there were so many demands that other people were making of me that I wasn't really able to be fulfilling. So that's kind of where I was in the beginning of this year.
I mean, I think that's where what I must imagine a lot of moms find themselves is just, I don't have time to think. I just do.
Yeah.
I wake up and like from the minute I wake up to the minute my head like hits the pillow, I have something I need to be doing at all times. And almost all of it's for somebody else. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I got to feed people. I got to clothe people. I got to bathe people. And then I have to do my job, like somewhere in all of that. And I think it's a cycle that a lot of people have gotten just stuck in for years and years and years. And easily, like you could easily just be there for years, I think, if you didn't stop it. It would just keep going.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that are stuck in that cycle now. And I think it did happen to me very easily, like without me realizing. Like, I think I am somebody that generally thinks that I am pretty good at taking care of myself, but like my life just became so busy. And I think I kind of lost track of that and lost my kind of perspective on that.
Was it extra busy because of COVID? Because like your kids were around even more often? And yeah.
Well, COVID was really like that was sort of like what the January time looked like. And then COVID happened and it was like, my kids' school was canceled and everything. Like my whole life, part of that whole like cycle is really relying on a routine, feeling like your day is so structured and, you do this and you do that, like make the lunches and then you do breakfast and then you like start your work day. It was like all of that totally changed when COVID hit. And it was really intensely stressful trying to figure out how to realign all of those needs that I was talking about, like everybody's needs, like my kids needing to be on their Zooms and then, just needing to be occupied with something during the day while I was working, but then, like trying to also make time to be with them in ways that I hadn't been doing. So it was just a lot of chaos. And I think that's actually like shortly after COVID hit was when I read Untamed. And that was like when I realized how, this wasn't just, my stress wasn't just caused by COVID. Like it was bad before, COVID even came about. And this was just exacerbating all of these patterns that I had been in already.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, I think that going through something like this, like a pandemic, which is so, never been experienced before in your or my lifetime, it's shown a light on things that weren't working.
Yeah,
personally,
exactly.
globally, like it just really, it brought crap up to the surface, which was good because it needed to be processed. It needed to be addressed. So for those people who aren't familiar with Untamed, which is a book Kristen and I actually did a book club conversation about back in May of this year, how would you describe what that book is about? I have my own take, but how would you summarize it to someone if you had to?
That book is like everything. I feel like that book is about finding a way to be empowered as a woman and as a mother, finding a way to keep a hold of yourself and an awareness of your own needs and your own sort of humanity in a world that is like kind of asking you to constantly be selfless. Yeah. So, I mean, the story is about her going through a lot of big changes in her life and, her marriage ending and finding a new partner and, how she navigated that, how she navigated like kind of upending the like comfort that she had in her life to reconnect with who she really was, and about how she became a better person, but also a better mother in the process of doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so good. And I don't care if you're a mom, I'm not a mom, that I cried so many times reading that book. And I'm not
Oh,
even
me too.
someone who's particularly caged, because caged is the opposite of untamed. But I deeply felt it and resonated with it because I think that being just kind of a woman in our culture is a constant act in some ways of defiance against the expectations and the norms and how you should be.
Totally.
So I loved Untamed for so many reasons. So Glennon Doyle, Untamed, if you haven't read it, we'll link to our episode about it. You can go back to May 2020 if you want to hear more. But it's worth reading. Don't just listen to our episode about it. But I'm not surprised that reading that really lit a fire under you and it made you question, gosh, I'm not necessarily prioritizing myself, as sort of trite as that sounds, because how many times have we heard Oprah say, like, I grew up, and I'm sure you did too, like coming home after school and Oprah was on. And for like years and years, that was just kind of like a comfort thing in my life. And like, how many times did you hear people talking about over the years, like moms needing to prioritize their life? Like, it's kind of trite, but it's also incredibly true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's like kind of like a superficial level of empowerment that we all feel like, oh, we're completely like modern women that are empowered to do things in our lives. But there's like a deeper level that's much more difficult around, am I actually listening to myself? Am I actually, like for me, I have a lot of people pleasing tendencies. So even though I feel like I'm empowered in many parts of my life, I still don't feel comfortable saying no to people in many ways. And that, I think that is a common thing for women in our culture. And that book really deeply touches on that of, if you're not disappointing other people, then you're not really kind of living your life in a way that it's going to be natural in any person's life that they're going to be disappointing others. That's just part of being true to yourself. And, I hadn't really thought about that before.
So I think it was shortly after that you must have met me or reached out to us.
That's right?
Yeah. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it got you thinking to the point where you were like, I think I need to do something differently about this.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it changed a lot for me, but I think even when I first met you, I still was thinking about it in terms of, well, I want a new job. Like one of the points that's like so sticky for me or like so difficult for me right now is that I'm so frustrated in my job and I need a new job. And so, I was like reaching out to you for career coaching around like, let me try to, do some networking and figure out how to get another job. And like, I still wasn't really realizing like that what I was needing was like so much bigger than a new job. Like it was a way to do what we were just talking about in Untamed, like to do like the deeper work of feeling comfortable with myself, of like taking control and ownership of my own time and not like being pulled in 1,000 different directions by various external pressures or needs, and to feel confident and comfortable within myself, to do a job search in a way that isn't kind of like frantically trying to meet the needs of other people, but like feeling comfortable with what I'm looking for and what I want. Yeah, I mean, in a number of different ways, I think I still didn't appreciate what I was really hoping for or needing to do.
I think that's really good and interesting and affirming that what happened was you read Untamed. It cracked something open in you. It consciously, but then on a deeper level, unconsciously sort of made you desire things. And I don't even know that you could articulate exactly what it made you desire at the time, but you craved something different. And what happened is you ended up magnetizing, you brought into your experience something that had the ability to be the answer to that question you were unconsciously asking. But what you thought it was going to be was something more surface level. And so what I love is that the universe will find a way to like give you what you want, even if you don't realize that it's what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Like it did you a solid, I think, because totally. Obviously coaching with me and Kristen is not about like, yeah, sure, let's find you a new job. It's, well, hold on. Let's help you become someone who can actually get a job and a career that you feel very deeply aligned with. But that's not easy work, especially if you're someone who, like almost everyone, has a lot of fears, has a lot of limitations that they've put on themselves, a lot of beliefs about who I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to articulate myself. And like getting clear on that is the work that Glennon talks about doing in Untamed. So yeah,
Totally.
it was just your entry point to all of that. It was the easiest path to get you there, I think.
Totally. Yeah.
Could have
that's
talked
exactly
about
right.
anything. You know what I mean? Could have, we could have been coaching around relationships. We could have been coaching around family, your parenting. And it all would have been a good entry point probably to get you there. Career was just like the easiest one. So that's what the universe went with, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So, okay. There's so many things that I want to talk to you about, but I want to focus on like the thing that first made me want to have a conversation with you on the podcast, which was how you've carved out space for yourself somehow to pursue this facet of yourself that you realize is integral to who you are, which is like your creative side. And I don't think you, let alone anyone else, would probably have believed you, a few months ago or even if you'd said, oh yeah, I'm a mom and I have 3 kids and it's a pandemic and I work full time and my kids have like a virtual learning situation, but I've also carved out time for myself to like pursue my creativity multiple times a week. I don't know how that actually is happening. So I want to get to I want you to walk us through like how you realized that that was necessary for you and then how you went about making it happen.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that I would have said it was possible when we first started working together. Like if you had suggested to me like, oh, well, you should just like take some time to paint or something, I would have been like, no way. I can't.
Yeah. Like that's a nice idea, but like you don't have 3 kids, Rachel. You don't know what you're talking about.
No, I mean, I don't know if I would have thought that, but I just would have felt like that would be too overwhelming for me or something. And I feel like it was really, I think it was while I was listening to your podcast, actually, it was like in the car that I kind of like made this link in my head. And like, we had been talking about white knuckling, which is something that I'm still like so working really intensively on trying to stop doing. Like I would by no means say that for me is like something that I've figured out. Like it's very much in process, but like, we were talking about like, I forget whether it was like stuff to do with family or work, but we were talking about how I was trying to like force things to change in a certain way.
Death grip things to, happen. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And you were like introducing me to this concept of white knuckling and you were saying like, you have to, and we had a couple of conversations around like kind of trusting the universe or trusting yourself and like letting go of your own expectations of things enough to like see around you what is actually present in your life. So like we had that conversation and I was listening to an episode of your podcast and you were kind of talking about that again. And like, I think there was some exercise that you had asked somebody to do or like some question that came up where it was like, really just put aside the disappointment or the expectations that you have that are unfulfilled in your life. And I think this for me is around like this whole career search that I'm doing where I feel like so much that I want to get another job and frustrated at not having found one. And so instead of going into that like very familiar pattern, which is sort of like a way of gripping things really tightly of what actions can I take to get there? And like, what are the next few steps? Just think about like, what are your actual needs in the moment? Like, what are you feeling right now? And what would make you feel better in the moment right now? And I remember like, we talked also about ease and just feeling like ease is like what I actually feel like I need. It's not necessarily like, anything related to my job search. It's just that like my life feels so kind of like I mentioned, like frenetic, and I need like a place that is calming and I need some space by myself and some ease in my life. And I was trying to think like, how could I possibly get that? And painting popped into my mind because I feel like I have felt so calm and meditative and like fulfilled and happy when I'm painting. And I hadn't done it it's like probably been 10 years since I've like actually, seriously painted for any sustained amount of time. But anytime like in the intervening 10 years that I've gone back and like done it occasionally, it's always just been so relaxing and powerful for me. And so I was like, oh, I could like paint. And then I started thinking about it, like, how could I really do this? And I like talked about it with my husband, and we, came up with this idea that I could just like rent some studio space, because we probably don't have room in our house where like the kids are not going to, be all up in it, and it's really messy. And so I just like I just did that, which is like pretty unusual for me to do things like that. I have like I said, like I'm a routine kind of person. So like making changes like that is not something I have done in any recent memory at all. But like, it feels amazing. Like I go twice a week. I changed my work schedule so that I'm basically working longer days, fewer days of the week. And like that puts more on like my husband to watch the kids or gives them a little more screen time. But I compress my work schedule so that I have a couple days a week where my only responsibility is just to go there. And like, as soon as I walk in the space, it feels so like open and relaxing, and it's wonderful. And, I think because I enjoy it so much, I like have not, it's not been that long. It's probably been like 10 weeks that I've been going, but I've not missed one day because I just look forward to it like all week. And it's been great.
The fact that you haven't missed a single day is very impressive, because that tells me how much it's doing for you and like how much you're getting out of it, because you're not at the point where you're trying to rationalize, well, I could maybe skip it this time. Like it's become kind of like a self-care practice.
Oh, totally.
And not
it's very
in
much
the
a self-care practice.
Not in the like, so I think there's like two levels of self-care. There's sort of like surface level self-care, which is like taking bubble baths. And hey, if you like a bath, great. That's awesome. But I think that when people think of self-care, they think of things like that, like physical kind of pampering type things, which has their place because it can be very relaxing and it's very good to calm down that nervous system. But then there are things like what you're talking about, which is that too. Like it's very relaxing and it does wonders for your nervous system, which I think is super critical because it's hard to process things. It's hard to integrate things. It's hard to come up with new ideas. If you're constantly in like stress mode, you're just functioning. You're just surviving. You're not really thriving. So anytime you can get that deeply relaxed and into that meditative state, you're really integrating things with unconsciously. I think it's like you're allowing things to actually, you're deeply processed and you're coming up with new ideas and you're synthesizing things without even needing to consciously be thinking about it. It's happening. And
Absolutely.
It's just working wonders on your body and your mind. But it's good for you on that physiological level, but it's good for you also on a very deep spiritual level, which sometimes I don't think like a bath or like a bubble bath necessarily can achieve, which is it's fulfilling you on a values level, on a, I'm a creative person and this is part of my identity and I am fulfilling that side of myself when I get to do this. And that's more rewarding than like basic kind of pampering self-care.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with you like fully on both of those things.
So I'm curious, why would you have 6 months ago, if I had suggested this idea to you, you would have shut me down. You would have been like, that's not possible. So tell me, what would your argument have been back then for why it's not possible? Like list off the things, because I know you got the reasons still ready at hand.
Yeah. I mean, there's the work schedule, which like I'm constantly being asked to do kind of more than I can at work. And so I'm constantly feeling like I'm like running to catch up and working hard there. And then, there's just like, there's a schedule with the kids every day that I'm responsible for, like, of getting them ready for school and then picking them up and being with them in the evenings and the afternoons. So yeah, I don't know. There's lots of things.
Well, there's also, I have to imagine knowing you, and I'm sure we've coached around this too. Who am I going to disappoint in doing this? Like,
oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't change my work hours. That's going to put a strain on people I work with, or my husband is going to think this is so selfish because I'm asking him to like take on more with our children while I go and do something totally frivolous because no one needs to paint, right? Like
Totally. Yeah.
So you had to, I assume, in order to do this for 10 weeks straight so far, I hope it continues indefinitely. But in order to do it as long as you've done it, I think you've probably had to get to the point where it became a little easier to make other people uncomfortable or to put people out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and you know what's so funny about that is that that's totally, I mean, you're right that like it's the demands and then my like, internalized sense of powerlessness and not being able to confront those demands and say no to them. Right. And like, what's so ridiculous about that is that there was no pushback from anybody.
No blowback, like none. No. Of course.
I like emailed my boss. I spent so much time drafting a very carefully worded email about like, my work-life balance and, how I was going to be able to attend to like all the things that I was still responsible for doing. And he just wrote back like 3 minutes after I sent the email and he was like, sounds good. I was like, oh, okay.
I like agonized over that. And
yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's good proof. And your husband wasn't put out by you asking for this?
Not at all. I mean, he was like the same thing where I was like, okay, I'm going to be asking you to like whatever, like these 2 evenings to like stop at this time and to do pickup one day a week. And he was like, okay, sounds good. I mean, we did have to do like a little bit of like an internal reshuffle and like, there are some evenings where I, am making myself more available, but like that was, yeah, I mean, it was pretty, it has not caused any conflict. And, I mean, I think what's also so interesting about it is, like you were saying, I really do feel like restored by it or energized by it. And the days that I go when I come home and I'm with the family, like in the evenings, it's like, those are like the best nights of the week.
Yep.
For sure. Like I'm in such a better mood and like my energy, like increases the mood in the house too. Like we'll do fun activities like, on those nights.
Like if mom's happy, everybody's happy, right? Like,
yeah.
Or if mama ain't happy, nobody happy. Yeah, that's it. And I'm sure your husband inherently understood that, which is why he didn't give you any pushback because he knew you would be more energized and happier and that everyone would be the recipient of that.
Yeah, I think that he acknowledges that, like in working with you and, like that I'm kind of on this journey, right, to like kind of feel myself in more alignment and, just kind of accomplish some of the goals that I have or, just to feel more confident and better about myself. And so he's prior to me making that ask about the studio, like he had been very supportive of all of that. So I think he saw this as part of that and recognized that it was going to be helpful. And I think then when I actually go, like, I think he sees the benefit of it when I come home because he's, like happy to see that kind of energy that I bring.
So I just thought of a question that might actually be more of a coaching question for you than one that you immediately know how to answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Yeah,
which
sure.
is, what do you think doing this and everything that it's entailed and what it's doing for you, how do you think this is going to be helpful for you ultimately getting the thing that you want, which is like a new career? Like how is this going to help you?
Yeah. And this is like stuff that, like you said, like we're still kind of working through. But...
Yeah. That's why I'm like, this is very relevant for her, but I want to see what she thinks. If I put her on the spot, what is she going to say about that?
Yeah. No, like I completely see the connection there, so in my job search right now, I'm doing a lot of informational interviews and my goal is to like feel really grounded and really comfortable talking about myself in situations that are inherently uncomfortable, where you're talking to someone that, you don't know at all and you're talking on the phone and you're not like in a comfortable setting. And it's building a kind of like resilience and sense of confidence in me going to studio is that I feel more connected to who I am. I feel more connected to like my own inner world. And, I have become more and more aware of how that is really like a muscle that you build over time. Like this is kind of going back to the whole thing about Untamed. Like I was so, what was so deeply like moving to me about that book was realizing how disconnected I had become from like my own inner self, my own like desires and my own thoughts, and how it was all kind of, my whole life was like was driven by other people's expectations of me. and feeling like how deeply sad that was for me and wanting to take control of that. And then over time, kind of discovering that there is this like kind of muscle memory that you build in yourself of being able to check in given moments, some of them not challenging at all. Like in the studio, it's very easy for me to check in with myself and see how I'm doing. It feels very comfortable. And then other moments that are more challenging, like when I go to these these like informational interviews for jobs, the stronger I am and the more connected I am to like who I really am, what I'm really feeling, the more aware of that I am throughout my day, the better I am at just kind of showing up for anything, really. But especially in those situations where I'm trying to like push myself outside my comfort zone.
I think you being a type 9 on the Enneagram, if I can say that about you, I think that while everyone needs space to themselves, everyone needs to be able to connect with themselves on a deeper level. And we need time, and we can't be just going and expecting to then also somehow be clear about on a deep level about like who we are and what we value and what we want and what direction we're moving in. If you're going too fast, you're never going to have like the space to actually pause and integrate and like allow yourself to synthesize anything. And as a type 9, I think that what I've seen as a pattern in you, some of my other type 9 clients, as also Kristen, huge type 9, is that they need a lot of space, maybe more than the average person, to process things. Mm-hmm. And that they are one of the things they have to be very wary of is being too easily influenced by other people. Totally. And that you can jump out of yourself super easily. Like you get ungrounded very easily. You get kind of like, it's literally like you jump out of your own body very easily because, someone says something and you're like, well, maybe they're right. Or, should I be doubting everything? So you having this like dedicated space multiple times a week to nurture yourself on multiple levels, like on an artistic level, on, just kind of like that nervous system level where it's so meditative and it's so soothing and it's so calming to you. But on a type 9 level, what it's doing is it's reminding you and it's sort of reinforcing what it feels like for you to be you. And for you to like know who I am, how I feel, what I think, so that like you just said, when you put yourself in a difficult situation for a type 9, which is having an informational interview with someone who might intimidate you, the ripest opportunity for a type 9 to then want to jump out of their body and please that person or start doubting, well, that person thinks this, does that mean I'm totally wrong? It's really good practice that, wait, hold on. No, I have a very strong feeling now and memory of what it's like to be me and to be grounded and to be very connected with what I feel and what I want. And it, like you kind of said, it becomes a new muscle memory. Like you're building new muscle memory in doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I feel that. I really feel it.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people, when they think about taking space for themselves, first thing they're going to argue is that they don't have the time and that they can't do it. And I think that what you're pointing out here that is kind of obvious, but also not, because if it was, everyone would just do it, is that it's not really a matter of logistics. Like, yes, there are some logistics that have to be negotiated. Like you have to tell your boss you want to do it. You have to ask your husband if he can support you in it. But that was the easiest part, was like rejiggering the schedule, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that the harder part about making space for yourself is having to sort of get over a lot of the internal barriers you've built up against it. That it's not really about, I don't have the time. It's, no, I don't have the bandwidth because I feel like I have to say yes to everything and everyone. And I feel like I'm going to be disappointing people if I do it. Like that's probably what keeps most people from creating space for themselves.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there is a fear of taking up that space. There is a fear of truly being yourself and showing up as whatever your needs are, saying that this is who I am and this is what my need really is. And it does seem like, to somebody that doesn't know me, it does seem like kind of crazy that I go and do this thing for 2 days a week, but it has helped me in so many ways. And I also think for people that like, I think that creative thinking and like engaging that part of your brain that is just like, outside of whatever your job is, or people have creative parts of their job too, but I just mean like outside of kind of like the more nuts and bolts of like office work, to have things outside of that where you engage your brain, I just feel like is so incredibly powerful. And I think it's so undervalued in our society. It's so easy for people to like think that is not going to be fulfilling or I mean, it doesn't have to be painting. It could be like going for a hike or like anything that kind of gets you out of the ruts that we get ourselves into. I just feel like that is so powerful.
Not to make this like super, this is going to seem like it's a detour. I don't think it is, but this is why the idea of like the Sabbath exists. I'm not a religious person, but the day of rest, it genuinely means something because there was this became one of how I defined space is one of my core desired feelings. So I love this conversation because like space is so important to me. I feel like if I don't have it, I become the worst version of myself. And one of the ways I define it is something I read somewhere about what, like in some random text, I don't even remember where I read it, but it was a description of like why the Sabbath exists or something. And the phrase that I will never forget was that it exists as a cathedral in time. And it painted such a visual for me because I love going into old churches and like old cathedrals. And when you step in there is like a timelessness about it. It is sort of like there's quiet and it's like big and it's holding so much space that it does feel like time kind of stops or that there's like just a timelessness about it. Like the world might be going on crazy outside, but in here, it's like time has been sort of suspended. And I think that that's why the day of rest, quote unquote, exists is because you need time as a person, whether you're religious or not, for time not to exist. Because when that happens is when you're deeply processing things and you're deeply integrating things and you're able to reflect and you're able to like come up with solutions to things. And I think that that's what, when you go and you have your painting, sessions every 2 weeks, like that's you kind of stepping into your own little cathedral in time. And it's like this reverent place where you're not worshiping a god or anything in that moment, but you are kind of like, you're worshiping sort of in a reverent way, like something that matters to you. Like you're pouring yourself into something. Like I don't know. That's why I love space. I went on a weird tangent.
I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know if this is relevant, but like we're Jewish and, we know people that like what they're called like Shomer Shabbos, but they're like very religious, like Orthodox, and they actually do observe the Sabbath and they like take that day and they just disconnect from everything. They don't look at their phone. They shut off their phones and they just like spend the time, by themselves or with their family, like, just like in their own home. And I'm like, I always kind of feel a little jealous of it. Like we should make time in our lives to do that because I think it's so connective to do that. And it's so necessary. And like, you could say like all of that stuff. I mean, it's kind of like what we're saying, like you could easily say like, oh, I don't have the time to do that. But like, you could also argue that like with our modern lives and how busy and frenetic everything is, it's actually more important now to make the time to do that kind of thing. Yeah. I think it can be really healing.
I think that what people need, and this is just a theory, but I think what people need in order to be bought in is to know that it's directly relevant to their lives and to getting what they want. I think that sometimes we think, oh, that's a nice idea to like spend time with your family and connect and disconnect. And like you intellectually know that that's good for you, but you don't totally see why it's important or that why it's actually what's going to help you get closer to your goals. I think ideally we should be able to do that stuff just because it feels good and because we want to without needing to know that this is going to pay off in some way. But I think sometimes we do need to know there's a payoff or else we don't feel motivated, which is why I asked you that question about why do you think this is actually going to be directly relevant to you getting what you ultimately want? And you had like a very clear answer to that. And I think that answer exists for everybody, that whatever you want, whatever it is you're striving for or working toward, you're going to get there faster and have a better experience if you're clear and calm and grounded on the way there. So doing, like, carving out space for yourself to do things that feel timeless and like reverential for you is just refueling your tank. And not just refueling it, but I think it's polishing you in a lot of ways. It's making you able to see things clearer. It's making you able to process things faster too. So it's like a tune-up whenever you go do that along your journey. And we need tune-ups. I think that's part of the reason we get so broken down and exhausted, right? Is because we've gone so much longer than our little vehicles should without any oil changes, without any tune-ups. Like, we're sputtering, like, a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, as you're saying that, I'm just thinking, like, I think for me, what is so great about that space is, like, I fully take up that space when I'm there. Like, when I'm there, it's just like me, like, swimming in a sea of my own thoughts and, like, letting myself really breathe.
You're unfurling. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, understanding what that even means to do that while I'm doing it, right? I'm just like, oh, like, I can really open up in different ways, that I don't do in my normal life. And I can take some of that and put it into my normal life in different ways. But, I think for different people, it could be totally different. Like, what that, reverential time, or like, what that kind of peaceful, reflective time could really mean. Because not everybody needs to do that, but that's what I needed for me. But yeah, I think regardless of what your goals are, that time is really valuable.
I mean, we've said it before. I'll keep saying it. It's not like humans are we're not robots. We can't just perform, produce without any pause, without any tune-ups, without any recharging. Like, your phone has to be recharged every day. And like, we don't really do that we don't really do that for ourselves. And so it's, it's not just about sleeping, though God knows, I'm sure all of us could probably use more sleep. It's also about how calm and grounded and recharged we are during the day too, and what things we're doing that are kind of like a vitamin for our souls, so to speak. So I think, like, that's the question for people, is that you found that thing that works really well for you, and you love it so much that you have been religious about going twice a week. Like, you go that. It's funny how, you might not be super religious, but you're religious about that. Like, go more often than some people go to church. That's for sure. But I think that it might be a great question to ask everyone listening. What is something that you do or that you used to do often in childhood? As I think, like, that's how far we have to look back sometimes to find the things that really made us feel a sense of spaciousness and timelessness. Like, what are the things you did earlier in your life that made it feel like time was standing still, and that you were unfurling, and that you were just kind of rolling around in it,
Yeah.
So for you, that's painting. For me, I mean, this is why I try to read a book. Like, I'm always reading a book. Always. If I'm not reading a book, I'm like the worst version of myself. So I always read a book before I go to bed at night, and it's usually a fiction, because I just feel like nonfiction doesn't do it for me. Like, it's interesting, but I don't feel like it's not escaping, I guess is a word, but it's not like creating, it's not using my imagination in the same way when I'm just reading nonfiction. So reading absolutely does that. Sometimes watching like a good show, of course, on, Netflix can do that for you. But like being outside in nature, that really does it too.
Totally. Yeah.
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 So I think everyone knows their thing. Like, everyone has had those experiences. And it's just, what you should be doing, and we're often just not doing it.
Right.
That's really it. And we're not doing it because we're saying, oh, it's not possible because I don't have the time. Or my husband won't help me, or he won't agree, or whatever. And thank you so much for proving us all wrong, and yourself.
Yeah, I definitely proved myself wrong. That's for sure.
Ooh, I hear. Is that your little one in the littlest one in the background?
Sorry. Yes, it is.
No, of course. This is your real life. So, well, I think this is a great place to tie a bow on it. Like, I think that you've given us so much to ponder and to think about, and I think made an amazing case for the value of creating space in your life. And that also, you're still very much a work in progress. That was part of why I wanted you to come on and talk to us, because we're still in the middle of coaching, and there's some things you're still actively working on, but like, you've made so many changes in such a short period of time, and you've proven that, if you have the willingness, you can really see significant shifts. And I think that's like so nice to see. You're not like years out, you're still in the thick of it.
Totally. I'm very much in the thick of it. With regard to like what we were talking about with some of like the, getting more comfortable with, being open with myself and what that even really means and what it looks like, what I'm like having that inform what I'm interested in and how that is going to lead me down a different career path. Like that's very much ongoing for me right now. Well,
I know that as a normal person, you don't have like a fancy website to promote or anything, but I know that we talked before this, and I know that you're totally open to people reaching out to you on LinkedIn if they want to connect, practice some informational interviewing with you and vice versa, maybe.
Absolutely. I would love that. Yes.
So I'll link to that in the show notes so that people can come say hi. If you do reach out to Anna, let her know that you're a Clarity on Fire person, so that she's not like, who's this rando who wants to talk to me? But yeah, I think that'd be fun. I always love getting to introduce Clarity on Fire people to each other. So Anna, thank you for joining us. This has been awesome.
Yeah, it's fun for me.
I always love getting to talk to my clients and see their faces is the bonus. So if you guys want to leave a comment on this, I hope you will. I hope you'll kind of own up to, all right, here's what I need to create space for, and I'm going to do it. And then we can hold you accountable. So thank you, Anna. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. I highly recommend, we talked about it in the episode, but now that we're at the end, I want to remind you, if you haven't listened to our bonus book club episode from back in May about Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, which we kicked off this episode talking about, Anna mentioned it in her bio, how much that really resonated. And she brought it up again in the episode. It just really changed so much for her. It got her gears turning, and it made her actually end up reaching out for coaching, because she started working through some of it on her own and was like, whoa, I got some work to do. It is such a good book. As someone who's been a coach for 8 years, it's not like I'm new to personal development. And that book slayed me, made me cry multiple times. I love it so much. I just love Glennon and Abby.
Yeah.
Her partner. Read Untamed. Or at least go listen to our book club episode first. Yeah, then be convinced you want to read it, and then go read it.
Yes, we will link to that. Since when
I linked to it in the show notes in her bio. I just linked.
Oh, okay, great. So
yeah, or you can just scroll back to May of this year.
Perfect. Okay. Well, reminder, if you want to work with us in either of the ways we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, half off of our Passion Profile short course, or a single session.
Or a bundle.
Then you can find those links in the episode description as well. You have one more week to do that.
One more week
for the time's up.
A thought, since it's Christmas, people are probably like, can I gift this to someone? I'm going to go ahead and say, I can't stop you, but I would say no. We've had people do that before. And here's the thing. If we're talking about like lotion or candles or t-shirts, sure, give people gifts without asking them their permission. When it comes to personal development, people need to be bought in. Yeah. They have to kind of know that they want to do it for themselves.
I'm not going to say don't buy it for someone, but I would not necessarily surprise someone with this, because they're going to be like, what is this? They're not going to have the same kind of excitement and buy-in as they would if they really wanted to do it. And then you said, hey, I know you've wanted to do this thing. I know you love these Carry on Fire girls. Can I give you a single session or something? That's a different story.
Yeah, don't just surprise someone with a coaching session that they didn't ask for and they have no idea who we are. I'm telling you, they're probably not even going to show up for it, and your money will have been totally wasted. Though I'm not going to complain about getting $150 and then not having to do work, but I am going to tell you to save your money on that.
Yes. Yeah. So get their buy-in first if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Because it is a very personal experience to do something.
Someone can't really be effectively coached or participate in a course if they're not bought in. They don't want to be there. They don't even get any skin in the game. Exactly. You got to have a little skin in the game. So just a little
good
heads up.
question. I'm sure we'll get that from someone. So we'll kind of head that up.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can get yourself a Christmas present. Why not?
Treat yourself.
Yourself.
Okay. We'll see you next Friday, I guess.
Friday. That's right.
The new side chat wherein I intend to debrief this entire year and talk about how our No Expectations challenge went.
Okay. We'll get into it.
Ooh, let's process. All right.
See you next
Bye.
week.